Welcome to Muscle Maintenance within Shape Fitness. I'm Coach Kim, and today's podcast workout is called Holiday Hips. The centerpiece of this short equipment-free session is the hip bridge. We're not going to start with it, but we are going to make it the peak part of the workout and lead up into it so that you can perform the hip bridge really, really well, because being able to execute hip bridges isn't all that difficult, but people often do them incorrectly and they don't necessarily get the most out of them in terms of the momentum that builds, in terms of the control that you have in both directions, in terms of the intensity level and the length of time that you're in the hip bridge. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's get started with a postural systems check. Of course, you don't need shoes on your feet. In fact, I encourage you not to have shoes on your feet when you execute these really basic moves to get you warmed up. You stand up really tall for the postural systems check with your feet about hip width apart. Your back is straight. Your arms are extended down beside your body, and your palms should turn outwards a little bit. Your thumb should face away from your body. That is anatomically correct in terms of the way that your clavicle and your shoulder mechanics are meant to be in unmoving sort of neutral position, right? So then make sure that your head is on straight, obviously. Get the noise out of your brain, but in terms of the actual anatomical mechanics of your head and the motion of your upper spine, you want to make sure that your ears and your shoulders line up with your shoulders back, and that allows your center of gravity to be in the right place. Plus, it prevents the pulling on the back of the neck and the collapsing of your chest. Zip up your tummy muscles, and that means you kind of pull in on your belly button, pull in and up sort of on your belly button. And then last thing is to tuck in your tailbone. All right, now we're going to go down to the floor. Take a deep breath before you go down to the floor. Inhale deeply through your nose. And then exhale, bellow the carbon dioxide out of your body. Remember, as human beings, we need oxygen in our bodies. And then we exhale, we emit carbon dioxide back out into the atmosphere. So you want to inhale deeply. And when you inhale deeply through your nose, you're more efficient. Your body is more efficient in terms of getting in that oxygen and producing or filtering it properly. And then you exhale out deeply through your mouth. So when you get down on the floor, just get down to your hands and knees. Make sure, again, that you're composing the position in its starting form correctly. Your shoulders and your wrists should line up vertically, one straight line, and then your knees and your hips should make one straight line. You don't want your knees too close together, too far apart, and you want to make a straight line from the hips down to the knees. Your feet are flat on the floor, the top of your feet are down on the floor, and your head is in neutral position, so you should be looking at the floor. Last quick thing to think about is to make sure that you don't mash the heel of your hand into your floor. You want to distribute your body weight through your palm and your fingertips. So I call it bear clawing the floor. That just means that you don't mash the heel of your hand in the floor. So just think about that a little bit. So a cat and a camel, really, really simple move from yoga, really, really easy to execute. You'd let your head drop like a bowling ball down towards the floor. And as you do that, you round up your spine like a scared cat. Take a deep breath. Exhale as you move. Inhale as you savor the extended position of your spine and the freedom or the relaxation of your head. Then take another deep breath, inhaling through your nose, and then as you exhale again, you're going to lift your head and your chest a little bit and let the lower part of your back contract. That is the camel. All right, again, inhale through your nose, and as you exhale, let your body invert or recompose the cat. So head drops like a bowling ball, and you're it's not like a bowling ball really fast, but slowly let your head drop completely down, and you're kind of like looking at your thighs, if you will, and then you round up your spine as you exhale, trying to get the spine as high as possible. Remember, the magic, if you will, of the human anatomy is the flexibility of your spine. A lot of sedentary Americans have very little flexibility in their spine, but that is because they don't move enough. It is not because they move too much. So when you move your spine in these positions, when you promote flexibility through really simple positions, I'm not saying you should go out and do a yoga class, because I don't believe in that. Actually, I think you're perfectly capable of doing it in your home in these little sort of mini segments. But by moving the spine up and down, or inverting it backwards and forwards, you are allowing the soft tissues, the ligaments and tendons that connect, along with the muscles that connect your spine, as well as those discs, the soft tissues that lay in between each of the vertebrae. All right, the next exercise is a plank. So now we're going to strengthen your core through the move that we all love and know, called the plank. And that means you drop down to your elbows. This is a low plank on your forearms. You make sure that your elbows and your shoulders are lined up vertically. And then you walk your legs back. We're going to start at 30 seconds, and the time starts now, which means that you are extended out in a horizontal plane parallel to the floor. You don't want a bend in your hips with your butt a little higher than the rest of your body. You want a flat plank, and you're halfway through. 15 more seconds to go. Breathe shallow, but inhale through your nose again, exhale through your mouth, and keep going. You've got 5 more seconds. Good. Now drop down to your belly. Let your body lower all the way down to the floor and extend your arms straight out. We're going to do a couple of Supermans to help. Again, core work is really essential. And when we turn over and we're in the hip bridge, you will thank me for having a really significant workout before we start executing some of the hip bridge variations that we're going to do, because that's what we're doing at the end of this, right? Now, with the Superman, you take a deep breath in as you're lying there, and then as you exhale, you lift up your arms and your legs without bending your knees. So you point your toes, and then you lift up by squeezing your butt muscles, and your lower back contracts as you lift up. But you don't bend your knees, because then you're not stretching those hip flexors out, which, that's why we're doing it, right? We're stretching out those hip flexors, making sure that you have awoken basically all of that tissue, because the hip flexors is a pretty complicated set of muscles on either side of your pelvis, and they actually connect your legs to your spine and sort of crisscross the body from forwards and back, not left to right, but from the very front of your body at the front of the pelvis, and then across and connect to the spine in the back. So they're really important muscles, and because we sit most of the day, they are forsaken by the sedentary existence that we have. So it's really important that we wake them up. Now, if you cannot execute a Superman with both arms and both legs at the same time, lift the right arm and the left leg, and then the left arm and the right leg. I'll give you a couple more seconds to complete a few more repetitions. It really doesn't matter all that much how many you do, but as long as you get about 30 seconds to 45 seconds worth of them in, that's great. Okay, let's go back up into a plank one more time. So bring your elbows back up bring your body back up onto your elbows, making sure once again that your elbows and your shoulders are in a vertical line, and then lift your body up into your plank for another 30 seconds. Your time starts now. If you can't hold a plank for 30 seconds, which you should be able to, very few people should not be able to do this for 30 seconds. If you can't, though, you can drop to your knees and do a partial plank. You just still need to make sure that your butt is down, which means you're not really resting on your knees. Rather, you are resting on the bottom of the fleshy part of your thigh. You've got 7 seconds left. We're going to stretch out the back in child's pose. Starting now, go ahead and drop to your knees, and then push your butt down onto your heels and drape your torso over your thighs with your arms extended straight out like they were in Superman. Don't let your elbows touch the floor now. They should actually be up in the air, because you want to walk your fingers as far away from your body as possible. This is called child's pose, otherwise known in my world as the hedgehog, because my 92-year-old client says children do not sit this way, and therefore he's renamed this exercise the hedgehog. He and I are actually putting out a I wouldn't call it a book. It's more of like a pamphlet that is going to be for sale on our website here in the next couple of weeks, with his chamber style of exercise. All exercises we either do on his bed or in the bedroom near his bed. So I call it chamber exercise. I can't remember what he's insisting on calling it. But anyway, so that's the hedgehog / child's pose. And now we're going to turn over, and I want you to lie on your back with your head facing your ceiling. Your knees are bent. Your feet are flat on the floor, about hip width apart, and your toes are straight. So your feet, if you don't know what parallel is, it means that two straight lines never meet, right? So your toes are not going to turn out, because if your toes turned out and you made a line, that means that your heels would eventually touch. But we don't want that. We want your feet to be parallel. So you have two straight lines there. And then the other thing to know about the hip bridge, when you lift your butt up in the air, your ankles and your knees should basically make a straight line from up to down. A straight vertical line. Okay? Now, that is hip bridge. Your hands are on the floor beside your body. Your palms face down. This is a basic hip bridge, and we're just going to hold this for 30 seconds. And I want you to take some deep breaths. If this is too easy, and this is obviously not a super complicated workout, but here's the thing about the holiday period. The next several workouts that we're going to be doing are all going to be based on the idea that you are not going to the gym. Now, there are people that go to the gym during the holidays. That's great. I'm a distance runner, so I will do some exercises in my home, and then I almost always, especially on the holidays when I know I'm going to be eating a decent amount, I go out and run a few miles. You can do that, do something recreationally, go for a bike ride, go for a hike, go for a jog, go play basketball or squash with your friends, whatever. Do something, go throw a frisbee in the park. But when you wake up, especially if you are, on holiday away from your home where you have access to a gym, you still want to we're way past that 30 seconds now. You can go ahead and let your butt drop to the floor for a second. And let both knees drop down to one side and keep your shoulders flat on the floor. We're just going to stretch out the lower back a little bit. Take a deep breath here. So especially if you are away from your sort of comfort zone in terms of having your gym available, having, maybe any equipment that you use in your home or whatever, get a 15 to 20 minute short session in where you don't need any equipment whatsoever. And all of the workouts that we do between now and the end of the year are going to be basically those sort of the basis of the sessions that we do. Not that it's super different the rest of the times of the year, but we are going to do some fun things focused on the holidays. And holiday hips, who can't get behind the idea of making sure that your hips are strong when we're focused on sitting with our families often and eating a little too much. We can at least know that we are doing something to keep those hips strong, which helps keep your abdomen strong, which in turn is really good for overeating periods of our lives. All right, let's go back up into the hip bridge. Now we're going to make it a little more complicated. So what we're going to do now, you're going back up into the air with both feet still flat on the floor. Really, really important during hip bridge. I didn't mention this before, but now you'll know if your body just inadvertently, without your thinking about it, your toes came up off the floor a little bit. That's because your quads are stronger than your hamstrings. And when you lift up your toes, that means that you're transferring some of the load that the back of the leg is supposed to support in hip bridge and allowing your thighs to sort of take over, to do the work that the weaker muscle group cannot do. And that's not good. So you want to make sure that your feet stay flat. You want your toes to be on the floor at all times. So what we're going to do to make this harder is we're going to actually lift up the heels. We call this a ballerina bridge. So you're going to lift up, hold for about 15 seconds. Your time starts now. So again, your toes, the balls of your feet and your toes are supporting your body weight, and your heels are lifted up. That's 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now you can let your butt drop for a second. And if you want to drop your knees down to one side and then the other to stretch out your lower back a little bit, that's great. This move should not have, the ballerina bridge should not have disturbed your lower back. Now, what will disturb your lower back in hip bridge is if your toes come up off the floor, because the thighs and your lower back are partners in crime, and they, again, will take over and do work that they don't necessarily need to do or aren't supposed to mechanically do or anatomically do in terms of movements of normal human life. But because other muscle groups are weak, your butt is weak, your hamstrings are weak, then they the thighs and your lower back kind of need to lend a helping hand. But we're not going to let them do that too. So at least right now. So let's go back up into the hip bridge. We're going to do another variation. This is called a Swiss hip extension. And in the Swiss hip extension, you're going to position yourself in the regular hip bridge again. Your feet are flat. Feet are parallel and hip width apart. And then you're going to leave your right foot exactly where it is. But the left foot, you're just going to lift up. Don't keep your hips up high, but you lift up your left foot 3-4 inches, and then slowly and gently tap the foot back on the floor and then lift it back up. Just 5 or 6 times to see how it feels. We're going to do a second set in just a few minutes. The Swiss hip extension is what we do. And this adds in that other functional priority that I talk about a lot called pivoting, because it's going to force your right leg to do all the work. And now you're going to switch, and your left foot's going to be on the floor, and your right leg is going to lift up off the floor where you tap the left foot down gently and slowly. And I want you to think about which side is more challenging, because your legs are not the same, do not have the same strength. No person has 2 legs with exactly the same strength, unless I suppose your whole life is physical movement. If you're an athlete and you are focused on that one particular issue, but all regular people have a dominant leg and a weaker leg. All right, so that's the Swiss hip extension. Now, the next move is going to be something called a butterfly bridge. And the butterfly bridge is where you drop your butt, and then let your feet, the soles of your feet, press together and let your knees open up out wide. Now, in order for you to actually lift your hips up into the air in this position, your butt and your heels need to be really close together. So bring your heels as close to your body as possible. And then when you lift up into the hip bridge, you're going to feel your inner thighs, another really weak part of your body. They're going to lift up into the air. All right, that's a butterfly bridge, and you can lift up and lower down 6 or 7 times. Again, we're going to go back through this sequence and finish up with a kind of more dynamic version of doing each of these versions of hip bridge. Okay, so let's do this. After you've finished 5 or 6 of those, go ahead and let your butt drop. Drop both knees down to one side in order to stretch out your lower back a little bit, and then the other. Take a deep breath. And then let's lift up into the regular hip bridge again. Okay, now what I want you to do is lift those heels up. And we're going to keep your heels up. You're going to lower your body down and lift up for a count of 6. Lower down, inhale, lift up, exhale. All right, after 6, should be about now, you're going to let your heels drop back to the floor. You're going to keep your hips in the air the whole time. And I want you to lift up the left leg and tap the left leg down, the Swiss hip extension, tapping for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Left leg stays on the floor, left foot stays on the floor, and then the right foot lifts up and tap down for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now drop your butt, bring your heels close to your butt, press the soles of your feet together, let your knees drop out to either side, and lift up for 1. Exhale up, inhale down. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now put your hands back. Make sure your hands are staying on your floor. Put your feet back flat on the floor. Lift back up into the regular hip bridge again. We're going to complete that little sequence one more time, and then I'm going to let you go. So we flatten the feet, lift the hips back up in the air. Take the extra second to make sure your mechanics are right. I know you want to get through with this and get out of here. All great, but let's do it correctly. We're going to go a little bit longer for each, counting to 10. So you're going to lift up the heels. Your feet are parallel. Your heels are in the air now. You lower your hips down, and we're going to lift up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 more. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Keep your hips up high, but flatten your feet now. Right leg stays where it is. Left foot comes up off the floor and taps down for 10, 9, 8, 7. Keep the hips up high. 5, 4, 3, 2, and switch. Now the left foot stays flat. The right foot comes up off the floor for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Awesome. Okay, let's do that butterfly bridge again. So let your butt drop for a second so that you can bring your feet really close to your butt. Press the soles of your feet together. Knees are out wide, and lift up. Exhaling up for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now, let your butt drop. Hug your knees. Bring those knees in and give a big hug. And then drop both knees down to one side. And then the other. Straighten your legs all the way out and lift your arms up over your head. Active Savasana. Take 5 deep breaths here before you stand up. Have a great week, and I will see you again soon.